I just want to say this is my first time ever doing this. It was kind of a learning process. So if you see any things I did wrong, or you know any tools that would have helped me out better, anything like that, just let me know. Give me some advice in the comment section. Let other people know that are watching the video to help them out. So before I get into the tutorial, I just want to mention a few things and say a few things that I would have done differently, or that I recommend you do differently than I did, since this was a learning process for me. I just want to be clear that, so I got about 10%, a little bit more than 10% of the weight of the mouse reduced. It is noticeable, but it isn't that noticeable, and it's a lot of work. I mean, this probably took me like 8 hours or something. First, I just want to go over the tools that you're going to want. You're going to want all this stuff before you start this. I used a drill to drill the holes in my video. I would not recommend that. It'd be a lot better if you could use a Dremel tool, and then if you could get like a nice cone shaped bit that you can drill like a small hole and then move it in and drill a bigger hole. Or if you don't want different sized holes like the one that I did, just get like a little drill bit type of thing for the Dremel. But the Dremel will be a lot lighter and a lot easier and safer to work with. And you're gonna need a little tiny Phillips head screwdriver for the screws. And I know you can, like on computers, you can hurt motherboards with magnets, so make sure you get one that's not magnetic or that has very little magnetism for the few screws that put in the little electronic board onto the mouse. And then for all the other screws, I'd recommend using a screwdriver that has a very strong amount of magnetism, so you can hold those little screws in place while you're putting them in, because the screw tends to fall all over. It can be really hard to get it in place. And then use some safety glasses for when you're using the Dremel tool, because little pieces of plastic can kind of fly all over. You don't want to get them in your eyes. And then I would recommend getting some 400 grit and some 600 grit sandpaper. You can get that at an auto parts store. And then parts that I would recommend getting before starting this, I reused the feet in mine. I would recommend just ordering new feet for the mouse. I'll leave a description where you can get them. Order those first before you start this. It'll be better than reusing them. And then, since it's so much work to do this and you're taking the mouse all apart anyway, I think that the cord on this mouse is really bad. So I'd recommend ordering a new cord. Get like a nice paracord or something lighter and more flexible, because the one on this mouse is so stiff. So I'd recommend replacing that, since you're going to be taking it apart anyway. And then I drilled holes through the base plate to where the feet go. I would recommend not really doing that, or keeping the holes really small. Like I put kind of big ones there, and it kind of makes the feet, like the surface where the feet go, kind of uneven. I wouldn't really recommend doing that. And just my advice would be, just be very gentle when drilling into this. There's so many little posts and parts that the screws go into. It's so easy to mess those up, so be very careful when drilling through the plastic. Drilling it, the plastic can tend to spin, so make sure you get a really good hold on it. Be really careful with your hands. It's super easy to hurt your hands. When you're drilling into it, put very little pressure on the tool. You don't need to push hard at all. And one more thing I want to add, a way you could take off even more weight is if there's a button or two that you don't really use on this mouse, you can completely remove those buttons.
So the first thing you need to do is get all the feet off the bottom. There'll be like a little indent for each one where you can get something under there. This one's here, there, one here, and then this one is right there. And then it'll help to get these off if you can heat them up first. I'm going to use a hairdryer. If you're trying to reuse these, careful when you pull them up, because the top part's coming up, but then the glue isn't coming up. See here, there's like two different layers. You know, you have access to all the little wee tiny screws on the bottom. You're going to need a little wee tiny screwdriver to get them out. There's one here, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them total. Now that you have all 5 screws out, you can take it apart. I think the easiest way is to put your fingernail right there, and then it'll come in half like that. Here, one here, one there. There's also one right here. And then there's another screw that's under this. You just take this part here, and you just pull it up, and it just sits in that little groove there, sits in this little plastic part there. It'll pull up really easy, and then there's a screw right there. And now this whole thing will go ahead and pull out, and then the cord come out like that. This thing is just laying in here. And the cable, you can just pull on the front of it, and it just pops out. And now I'm going to show you how much just this bottom part weighs. That way I can measure this after I put all the holes in it. You can see how much weight you can save just by doing the bottom part if you don't want to drill holes in the top of it. It was 16 grams. Now I'm going to take this top part apart. I'm just going to start taking out all the screws. There's a lot of them here, here, here. Here, 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 one there, two right here. Extra careful when you're moving that screw right there, as this will kind of move. So just should be gentle when you unscrew that one if it sticks. You don't want to break anything. So I've got 14 of these bigger screws from the top part, and then there's two smaller ones that are kind of hard to see. There's one here, and then right there. So now that you've gotten all the screws out, you can take this back piece off here. So this is all one piece here. Just slide out like that. Just be really gentle, make sure you don't break anything. Now underneath that, if you want to take it apart further, there's these screws on the top here. Go ahead and pull. The right click was kind of sticking, so I just took my screwdriver and just gently kind of popped it up there. Next we're going to take these two buttons out. So they go together like this, and then when you're looking from the bottom, it's going to be like that. It's kind of tricky. The easiest way is to grab them both here. And there's this top part that goes on here with the more back button. And then this button here, there's another piece like this that's under that, it's smaller. So I found the easiest way is to kind of grab both buttons and jiggle them around until they get loose. And then basically these two pieces are going to go out of that, this hole on this space right here. You got to get them to go through there. Obviously be very gentle so you don't break anything. Keep wiggling them around. Don't forget how you took them out. There. Come out. Do that. Next we're going to get these two buttons. So you kind of have to pull this part up to get it loose. And then it just comes out like that. And now with that button there, there's one more screw that I missed right there that's holding it on. So in order to get this button out here, we need to take these Dpi lights out first, which is this thing right here. It's two little screws that I pointed out before will be holding it on. You have to push that down off of there. And then you need to push that part up and off. This part just isn't up quite high enough. Here we go. And now this button, you just lift it off of these parts right here. Here. And then you gotta pull it out that way too. You can just take this plastic part off, it just comes off like that. So now that everything is off, I'm just gonna go ahead and basically drill a bunch of holes wherever I can. And I've never done this before, but it should be good to pretty much drill holes anywhere. Like, obviously stay away from spots where screws go, and then these little lines like that, I'm not going to drill through those because those probably help align the pieces when they go together. But kind of like all along here, so like all along here, here, down here, right here. I'm just going to drill holes all through there. One part where I won't be able to drill too many holes is this side part here, because keep in mind there's all these spots where the screws go, and just spots all this stuff that helps hold these buttons in place. So I won't really be able to drill too many holes there, but like over here should be good. All along here. This whole side here should be fine. This back part here. I think even on these buttons, I'll probably drill a couple holes right here. Maybe like one or two on the front part, I'm not sure yet. On this one, it should be safe to drill like a couple holes kind of back here. Keep in mind that the way this works is by flexing the clicker, so you don't want to like weaken it up over here. I think that could be a bad idea. And then this is just the top part here. You kind of go nuts with this and just drill a ton of holes. Just make sure to stay away from these the spots where the screws go into, obviously. So I've got some different size drill bits here. I'll probably use this step bit and just use this bottom part. Make the big holes at first and then fit little ones in, smaller ones in after where I can fit those. And basically I'm just kind of going to turn this thing into Swiss cheese. Just be careful, like I put that hole there not realizing it was right on the edge where one of the feet would go. So it's kind of, it'd be okay to put them kind of in the middle of where the feet go, but you don't want it right on the edge there because now it's not really going to stick on that part. Well, the feet are kind of big. You could probably get away with cutting them down a little bit smaller in some places, like with this front one here. But like with this foot there, I'm probably just gonna maybe have to cut off part of that there. Okay, so just before you drill a hole, just check on this side and see that it's like a safe place to go and drill it. Right, so it's not right where the feet are going. Sometimes after you drill, it can leave the bottom a bit uneven, so you might have to take like a little bit of sandpaper and smooth it out, or like a Dremel or something. So like I was saying before, sometimes you drill through it and the plastic will, pretty much every time it'll stick out a lot like that. But you can kind of push it down, back down with your nail, and then take the drill bit and stick it in and go in the opposite direction. Go back and forth. And then kind of move the drill around like that. You can get rid of those edges that stick out. So after drilling all the holes, I kind of realized that I could cut out some bigger sections. And I was using this router with this attachment. It's pretty much the only bit that I have. I'm sure there are better bits you can use. And it might be easier, rather than using a drill, to use a router also. But I had honestly never even used a router before. So I'm going to cut that out. And then the parts where the feet aren't going, I'll probably shave some of it off, make the plastic a little thinner, and then, so wherever you can kind of cut out some bits like that. So like right in here, I could probably kind of cut that out. And then even this, it just holds like this little ridge here, just holds the cord in. So you could probably shave some of that down in like a couple spots and then cut it out a little bit there. And then yeah, I'll pretty much kind of shave down all these spots, make them a little bit flatter where the feet don't go. And just make sure you wear like safety glasses when you use the router. It's a good idea. And so here's everything I took off the base. Still definitely really sturdy. You can see I Swiss cheese the fuck out of it. I mean, there's not too much more that I could take off. And I was able to get about 3.7 grams off just on the base there. So if you only wanted to drill the base, that'd be pretty easy too, because you wouldn't have to take all the buttons off and everything. You could lose 3.7 grams just from that. So this piece here is pretty much drilled out as much as I can. By the way, I would definitely recommend the step bit. It works really good. Smaller one is better. Like I have this one, but I broke the tip off of it, and I have another one, but I left it at work. These come in a set of 3. They're super cheap. I'll leave a link for them. It was only a few dollars. They drill through metal really well too. But like being able to drill, you know, the whole like as big as you want, I think will help save a lot of weight, and then you can move the little ones around the big ones. And it can take a lot more off. If you're using a drill, again, be super careful. If you're not holding this really firmly, it can kind of spin, or the little piece of wood I had can spin. I'm not pushing down on that real firmly, and I did actually break this piece off right here because it's spun. Should be fine. It should be easy to glue that back on, or if I don't need it, I can just leave it off, lose a little extra weight. But since the plastic here is kind of 2 layers of it and it's pretty unnecessarily thick, I'm going to take a Dremel and then just shave down a little bit of that inside part too. Like as you can see here, there's like this inside layer of plastic, and I'm kind of just going to go ahead and like rip and peel some of that back too. So I was able to cut off the inside layer of plastic like all the way around here. It's cut there, all the way around there pretty much. I really drill like there too much, but like I put a couple there where I just kind of drilled like partially into it but not all the way through. Use this step. But if you're going to do that, be super careful, because you do not want to mess these things up, or it might not go back together correctly, or the buttons might not be held in place. But you can put a lot of holes through here. And just be really careful, especially if you're using a drill like me. The router would be much better, but because when you do punch through, it can kind of jump all of a sudden. I did break off a little piece right here. I think it went like over in there somewhere. It should go back together fine without that, but here's the left click. As you can see, I'm just really taking as much out of this as I can. I'm not too worried about the way it looks or anything like that, or the way it feels. I think if there's holes where my fingers go, it'll only help me really grip it better anyway. Weigh all these other parts before to see how much is taken off, but I'll weigh when I'm done, the final weight, see how much weight it lost in total. And obviously, if you don't want to change the way it looks, you can drill out the bottom of it. You can go nuts on that. You can also do all these holes here in the inside, these holes here, and then you could also, well, it's kind of hard to drill these from the inside, but like with this piece here, so the plastic here is pretty thick. You can kind of drill in there and just not go all the way through. And then if you can reach like on the inside of here, it's kind of hard to get on the inside of like these parts. But if you can drill part of the way through like I did on the outside there and get quite a bit of weight off, and the rubber will pretty much stay there. Like right here, there's even a hole and I didn't get the rubber out all the way, and you can't even tell the difference by looking at the outside really. So now we just got to put everything back together. And don't forget to put this sensor on first, like I did. That way, like that. I'm gonna do the easiest part first with the base. So first, you just want to take the cord and you just push it back down in here. So when you put this back in, I didn't do this before, but there's a little tab right here. Make sure that the little board goes under that. So you're going to slide it in under that part right there first. And then you're going to press the other side down. So to screw this on, we're going to need 3 of these smaller screws. There's going to be 3 different size screws. There are these smaller ones. These ones with the bigger head, and there's only 2 really tiny ones. I think they just hold the Dpi light on, if I remember correctly. So for this, you need 3 of those medium-sized ones, 2 of the larger ones. And there's going to be a medium-sized one here, one here, one the one that was underneath this thing over there, and then these 2 big ones go here and here to hold that part on. And when you're tightening those 3 screws that hold the board on, make sure you just get them all loose at first, and then kind of tighten one a little bit, tighten another one a little bit, and then tighten another one a little bit. You don't want to tighten one all the way because it might make the board sit kind of lopsided. And just make sure you don't over tighten them. You only need to kind of snug them down kind of tight a little bit. And then once you screw this on, just take a look at the side of it and make sure it looks like even and straight. You don't want it to be warped or like lifted up or caught on something on one side. The height of this board here is what determines the height of that sensor there, basically. So if you get the height of this wrong, or you get it finished and the sensor isn't working properly, like it's kind of partially lifted up, it's probably because this board height is kind of not even, or it's lifted up in one spot. That was what happened to me the first time when I didn't realize I had to get it under that little notch there. It just goes back on there like so. There's 2 larger screws, one there, one there. Little trick you can use to get the screw in place, hold it with like a pair of tweezers. Just don't squeeze the screw too hard with the tweezers because it'll go flying across the room, so be careful. Alright, so we got to put all the buttons back in here. First thing is the button that goes right here. You punch that part in there, and then these holes right here, line those up. And push that part down until it goes in. And the next part is the lighting for the DPI. Next we're going to put this piece in for the DPI lighting, and it goes in this way. We're going to put those points in first and kind of push it until they come out here correctly. Goes down into that groove and around that, and that part there. Push down onto there. Next little cover goes over. It goes in this orientation with the lower side down on the lower part. It just goes over this. You just kind of push it down. It should go on really easily, so don't try to force it. If you're trying to force it, it's not in the right position. And then after we put that little cover on, where the DPI lights go, don't forget the 2 tiny little screws, the 2 tiniest ones. One goes there, and then one goes down there to hold it on. So we're going to put in these buttons. Try it from the top down. Seems to be a little easier from the top. Just have to get this part over there, and that part sits over that. You just kind of got to wiggle it around a lot until you can get it in the right spot. So pull this down and then pop it on, and it should sit in the right place. There's a screw that goes right there to hold that on. Alright, so next we're going to put these 2 buttons on, and they go together like this. And this part is really tricky. It took me about 20 minutes to figure out how to get it back in there, but now that I figured it out, I can show you, it'd be a lot easier. So you're going to take this one first, put it in there like that. This part there has to go on top of this. It's got to go over it. I just want you to put this one in first, just as put this one in first just to see how it sits in there. I figured out how that's supposed to go. It'll help you get it in place when you put this one over it. So take that one like that, then you're gonna have to put this one in there and get them seated together right here. And the trick is keep that tab on top of that. The trick is to take this button, and get it over that edge there. So take this and then get it over this part of the casing, and then push it back as far as it'll go, like that. Now once you do that, you should be able to wiggle it around. Be very gentle. You're just gonna have to wiggle it around a lot so you can get it seated. Can help if you take your hands on these buttons here and you can kind of move it around like that. And there you go. So the piece on the bottom went down first. You got to keep both of the buttons together when you put them in, and that way it'll go in smoothly. So we're going to put the right and left clicks on. This part here is going to be a groove that goes into that. So it's going to go over that piece right there. And you can push the top part down once it's aligned. And then there's going to be two of those big screws that go there and there to hold it in. And the right click is pretty much the same. This part here is going to go on top of that right there. So you just get that lined up first. Part should go down. And there'll be two screws, one there, one there. Next I'm going to put this on. You can put the thing for the light on after. It's actually easier. This is really easy. It just kind of goes on, pops into place. Next we're going to put all the screws in place on the underside. And those two tiny screws go here and here over that cover that goes over the thing for the Dpi lights. Good fucking luck getting those in. With the one there, I took the tweezers and I held the screw like this with them, like above the threads, and then put the screwdriver there. That helped a lot with those. The other one down there is a lot harder. I kind of took another screwdriver and helped push the bottom of it into place. It just kind of has to get lucky and fall into place if you don't have a really good magnetic screwdriver. The rest of the screws are going to be all big ones. There's going to be 13 of them. One here, 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 two right here, here, one down here, two here, one there, and one there. And you should have just one big screw left. It'll hold this end for the lighting. And that last screw is just gonna go right there to hold that in place. And now we can go ahead and put the top on. It should just kind of go on pretty easily. Just jiggle it around and just kind of press it on with like pretty minimal force. You definitely don't need this piece right here. I wouldn't have thought of taking it off probably if I didn't break it off by accident, but it actually weighs, this piece weighs 0.7 grams, so I definitely recommend taking that off. And you could probably even shave, mine broke right there, you could probably even shave it back a bit farther too, I'm not sure, but you definitely don't need it. So now you can put all the screws in, they're where all the feet go. There's that deep one there. And then there's 5 total, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. After you get it back together, make sure all the buttons still work. Like check all of them. And when I got mine, when I got the screws in the bottom, the right click here wasn't working. And I had to loosen up these 2 screws here. And so if those aren't working, try loosening those up, and then I just kind of got them as tight as I could with the buttons still working. And then obviously the last part, you just got to put all the feet on. Now, if you drilled holes where the feet go like I did, make sure if there's little things sticking up that you grind those down. I use the router so the feet stick on properly. And if you're going to reuse the feet like I did, you can use the hairdryer on them again, and that'll bring the shape back, because the shape will kind of go out. And then take something like hard and plastic right after you heat it up with the hairdryer and just press it on there. Really good. Like, use quite a bit of force, get it as flat as possible. And then when you go to use it, if you notice any of the feet, like maybe they're lifting up in the corner and catching, you could take a razor blade and kind of cut the edge off where it's catching. Like right here, if you look there, this actually, it wasn't from doing this project, but it happened before. I lifted up that edge a bunch a tiny bit when I had it off the mouse pad, and that corner was sticking out and I could feel it catch. So I just cut it off with a razor blade, and then that fixed the problem. And then you can just kind of press it down with your nail or whatever so it's not sticking up. So like this one right here might end up being a problem. I can just take a razor blade and just cut that off, press it down, won't be able to notice the difference. So the weight of the mouse I recorded before is 105.9 grams. The scale only goes up to 100 grams, so I had to weigh it when it was apart. That's why I didn't put it in the video. But this should weigh under 100 grams now. Alright, so time to weigh it. So I didn't make a video weighing it before because the scale only goes up to 100 grams, so I had to weigh it after I took the mouse apart. But it weighed in at 105.9. I'd say it could maybe have been like 104.9, so at 105 to 106, but I got it at 105.9, and online it says it weighs 108 grams, so I'm not sure. Online, if you Google it online, I think it says like it weighs, fuck. So now comes the best part, about to weigh it. Before I did any of the mods, I had a weight of 105.9, and the scale only goes up to 100, so I had to weigh it after I took it apart, so that's why I didn't put it in the video. And it could have been like 104.9, the heaviest weight I got, I think the heavier weight was 105.9. And I tested it with 2 different scales too, so it should be pretty accurate, in like 1 gram I'd say. And before when I weighed it with the cable on, just how I play with it, like right now. So 93.25. It kind of changes a little when I move it around. 93.56. Online it says it weighs 108 grams without the cable. I don't know, it seems to weigh a bit less than that though. Let me change the angle of it. So I'm getting 93.09, 93.4, 93.1, 93.9. If we go with 93.9, that means that I lost 12 grams on this mouse, which is pretty good. So a couple things, I forgot to do this until after I assembled it. But like all the little ridges that came up, the roughness from drilling into it, were really uncomfortable. So I had to go back with sandpaper when it was still assembled. But I'd recommend using like, maybe start with a 400 grit or 600 grit. You can get those grits at an automotive supply store. And it actually kind of makes the finish more matte, and I actually think it makes the way it feels nicer too. And then if you drill holes onto this glossy strip here, you're gonna need to sand that too. So you sand that down and make it all matte. You have trouble getting to like the little crevices and stuff, you can also use like a gray Scotch-Brite pad, which they also sell at automotive stores. It's a really fine one. But yeah, the little nicks were really uncomfortable, so you want to make sure to sand all those down. And then another thing that I realized not until after I was done, but I probably could have cut these entire pieces off right here. That probably would have taken another like 1.5 grams off, or 2 grams. And then I think this piece here, cut it all the way back to here, or maybe even cut the whole thing out there. I'm not sure if is there anything right under there, like a screw that goes into there or something. But if I could, I would just cut the whole thing out there if I was redoing it. I might cut these off in the future. Probably order some new feet
and then do it then, and I might make an update on the video then, because that might even take a couple, probably 1.5 grams or 2 extra grams off of it.